I joined Bonhams in 2014. It was a really interesting process because the restaurant wasn't built yet. The kitchen was established, but I started essentially just cooking for the executive board until the restaurant opened. It was really informative because I essentially learned, how to set up a restaurant along with the general manager. A year later, we finally opened our doors, and it's great that this is my first head chef job. I was over the moon. We got a Michelin star awarded in the first year. With such a small team as well, we were a team of 3 chefs. Being so small, everyone has to be able to do everything really. So there's a great kind of sense of teamwork going on because you really support each other. Bonhams undertook a £30 million refurbishment. The design follows the design through the rest of the auction house. Very clean lines, lots of natural light allowed to kind of come into the building. And we have regularly changing artwork depending on what's on that auction, which is great. So you could come for lunch and there could be a Hockney, there could be a Banksy, there could be a Hearst one minute, and there could be some Impressionist art the next week. So that's quite exciting, I guess, for diners, is they never quite know what's going to be on the walls of Bonhams restaurant. A lot of the wine is bought from auction with really great quality vintages from Bordeaux, Burgundy and Rhone in particular. I took quite an unusual route into chefing. I went to university, I studied history of art, which I suppose has a relevance to me being within an auction house at Bonhams. I kind of learnt on the job, I suppose. So I first started in Chapter 2 restaurant in Blackheath, which was the sister restaurant to Chapter 1 that had a star in Bromley. I moved to work at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, working at a Michelin-starred restaurant called Foliage under Chris Staines. And then I moved into the private sector, working for Richard Branson in his chalet in Switzerland and working aboard a private yacht in the Caribbean. Quite different to working in Michelin-starred restaurants, but equally as rigorous. I then came back and worked as a sous chef for Mikael Jonsson, who recently opened Hedone at the time, and then moved to Fäviken in Sweden, which is a 2 Michelin-starred restaurant in the very north of Sweden and on the 50 best restaurant list. My approach to the menu at Bonhams is quite simply using the best produce I can get my hands on. I let that dictate what I cook here. My style is quite influenced by quite a few Japanese techniques and a few Japanese ingredients that kind of, I suppose, have a core to my cooking. So I use dashi, which is a Japanese stock made from Japanese seaweed called kombu, and katsubishi, which is a bonito fish that's been cured, salted, fermented, smoked, and has a really great depth of flavour. Japanese vinegars, miso, koji, these kind of umami flavours that I use to really kind of bring some intensity into my cooking. The way I kind of compose dishes is, I suppose, loosely based around that term seasonality, which most chefs bandy about, but I know what's going to be going onto the market in a few weeks' time. So I kind of have a structure and an idea of how I'm going to plan my menus. But what I find really beautiful and really interesting is that actual crossover of seasons where you've still got a few winter products that are still doing fine and will come in towards the end of the season. Spring is slowly moving in, you get the first signs of wild garlic, the first asparagus shoots, in 3 or 4 weeks there's going to be morels. So I kind of plan my menu moving with the way that the seasons move. We do very little sous vide here at Bonhams restaurant. Most meat dishes are cooked in a pan, few are finished in an oven. We sometimes confit game birds in particular in duck fat, and then we'll finish those in the pan as well. So I'm not particularly pro sous vide. I quite like the texture that you get from aerating things. So we use the foam guns in aerating hollandaises or sabayons, which I think gets a real lightness onto the dish when you're playing with a really fatty, acidic sauce such as a béarnaise sauce, or we do a seaweed sabayon where it's a little play on a hollandaise where I infuse butter with seaweed and you get this beautiful kind of roasted nori flavour coming through. The way I cook and run services is we try to leave everything to the last minute. So very little prep is done throughout the day, really. Seafood, for example, the scallops we shuck just before, just to keep them super, super fresh. They're still moving in the pan when we're cooking them. So it's that kind of attention to detail for me that is really, really important in how I run Bonhams restaurant. Above all else, it's really about clean flavours and letting exceptional produce kind of speak for itself, cooking it really accurately and letting the purity of the flavour speak on the plate. Produce is a key part to this whole operation. I have maybe about 30 suppliers I use in a 24 cover restaurant, and I've spent the last few years really kind of seeking out the very best suppliers, producers of certain products. I get exceptional seafood from a deep sea diver up in Scotland that I get my scallops from and langoustines from. I get incredible dayboat fish from Cornwall and from Dorset. I source abalone from Ireland, where they're fed pure hand-harvested seaweed, and it's a fantastic product. It's massive in Japan, in Australia, but over in the UK it's not really considered a delicacy. And this eco-sustainable farm is really trying to make abalone popular again. Vegetables are a little bit trickier. There's some stuff that comes from Cornwall that's really good, but unfortunately some of the best produce in terms of vegetables I buy abroad. Incredible asparagus from Luberon, the famous Cevennes onion. These are products that you can only get obviously within their designated area of origin. And it's not only about finding the best produce, it's also about handling it and storing it and caring for it kind of properly. And that's something that I really drill into my team, is to handle it with the utmost respect. For me, it's quality of produce first, and it's rigorous and unrelenting, the fact that it's not kind of localism or like, right, I have to get everything from this country, which I'd love to do, but I just know this stuff is the best and outperform stuff in England. So, you know, I take that flavour as the most important thing. It's a great kind of mark of recognition, I suppose, to be given a Michelin star. I think, you know, a lot of chefs that work in Michelin star restaurants, which is my background, you have that ambition one day to achieve that. So to get it, especially like so early on, was, yeah, it's really, really, I don't know what to say. It was great.